A company founded in October 2022. No track record, no agricultural history, no established projects anywhere in the world, secured rights to 10% of a sovereign nation's land in under 18 months. The president who signed the agreement called it climate investment. The communities living on that land found out through an activist leak. The company is Blue Carbon LLC, and it is not acting alone. Across Africa, foreign governments, agribusiness firms, and carbon intermediaries have acquired long-term rights over tens of millions of hectares through leases, concessions, and offset agreements. Once you see who they are and what they are paying, the question becomes unavoidable. Who actually owns African land? It is not who you think. This did not begin in 2022. In 1884, representatives of 14 European nations gathered in Berlin and divided the African continent among themselves. Not one African was in the room. Every border drawn that week still exists today. More consequential than the borders was the land law. Colonial administrations passed legislation vesting all so-called unoccupied land in the colonial state, not in communities, not in the people farming it for generations, in the government. At independence, African nations inherited those flags. They also inherited that legal framework. The same mechanism that allowed a colonial power to sign away African land without community consent never disappeared. Unlike the first scramble, no new conference was required. The infrastructure was already in place. The architecture survived colonialism. The extraction changed form. Africa holds 60% of the world's uncultivated arable land. Agriculture is the continent's largest employer. Yet between 2021 and 2023, African countries spent $97 billion on food imports, documented by UNCTAD. Somalia registers the highest food import dependency on the continent at 35.8% of all merchandise imports. The continent with the most available fertile soil on Earth is a net food importer. The most productive agricultural land in sub-Saharan Africa is not sitting idle. It is under foreign control. The food it produces does not feed African populations. It feeds the countries that leased it. Since the year 2000, foreign investors have concluded deals for over 35 million hectares of African land, an area larger than the entire United Kingdom. 42% of all global agricultural land deals over that period are concentrated on this continent. Ethiopia, Ghana, South Sudan, Cameroon, and Liberia are among the most targeted nations. The Democratic Republic of Congo is the most severely affected. 9 million hectares of concluded deals, representing approximately 4% of its total land mass. The public narrative concentrates on China. The data says otherwise. Western European investors account for 40% of all land acquired in Africa. 315 documented deals covering 7.3 million hectares. That makes Western Europe the single largest foreign land investor on the continent, not Beijing, Brussels, London, and Amsterdam. North American companies account for an additional 13%. Together, European and North American firms dominate investments for food production and agrofuels, crops grown on African soil and exported directly off the continent. African land increasingly functions as outsourced agricultural infrastructure for wealthier economies. The UAE has signed 56 farmland agreements globally, the majority in Africa. Al Dahra, a government-owned Emirati agribusiness, operates more than 260,000 hectares in Egypt alone, producing cereals and fruit exported directly back to the UAE. In 2024, Qatar secured a 117,000-hectare wheat concession in Algeria. Saudi Arabia is Ethiopia's largest single foreign land investor. The logic is explicit. The UAE imports 90% of its food. Saudi Arabia 80%, with GCC arable land representing less than 2% of total Gulf territory. African farmland is not speculative investment for these nations. It is food security infrastructure, acquired before the pressure they know is coming intensifies further. China's actual documented agricultural land acquisition in Africa, per research from the China-Africa Research Initiative at Johns Hopkins University, sits at approximately 240,000 hectares. The perception is millions. The documented reality is the smallest footprint among the four forces in this video. Headlines from the last decade described a Chinese land takeover across the continent. The data does not support it. China's presence in Africa is concentrated in infrastructure, ports, roads, railways, processing facilities. The control mechanism is debt architecture, not land title. That is a structurally different instrument. The newest and most opaque mechanism does not grow food. It sells the right to generate carbon credits from African forests. Blue Carbon LLC was founded in October 2022 by Sheikh Ahmed Dalmouk Al Maktoum, a member of Dubai's royal family. Within 18 months, the company signed agreements covering 24.5 million hectares across Liberia, Zimbabwe, Tanzania, Zambia, and Kenya. The Liberia terms are documented. Exclusive rights over 1 million hectares, 10% of the country's total land. Duration, 30 years. Blue Carbon retains 70% of all carbon credit revenue. Communities were not consulted. They found out through a leak. Zimbabwe, 7.5 million hectares, 20% of that country's territory. A 2023 investigation by The Guardian, Die Zeit, and Source Material found that 94% of Vera's rainforest carbon credits represented no actual emissions reduction. The climate benefit is phantom. The land control is not. Africa does not have a land ownership problem in the legal sense. The titles are African. The governments signing these agreements are African. What Africa has is a land rights problem in the economic sense. The right to farm, the right to harvest, the right to profit from its carbon. Those rights have been leased and concessioned away at $1 per hectare per year to feed populations and offset corporate emissions thousands of miles from the soil. The legal architecture built in Berlin in 1884 is still processing these transactions. Different actors, different flags, same mechanism, same continent absorbing the cost. The land is still African. The economy of that land is not.